Kevin Costner's forgotten horror movie that critics despised is now free to stream. Kevin Costner might be struggling these days to finish his Horizon saga following its disappointing box office performance, but long before he gambled it all on the Old West, the multi-hyphenate creator cut his teeth in such acclaimed films as The Untouchables, Field of Dreams, JFK, and, of course, Dances with Wolves. For a while, it seemed like no genre was off-limits for the former Jonathan Kent, and this includes horror. However, while other categories brought Costner to new heights, his appearance in a mostly forgotten 2009 supernatural dud garnered nothing but shame and chased him away from the genre for more than 15 years. Fresh off the dramedy disaster swing vote the year prior and looking to get back into the good graces of the viewing public following the success of 2003's Open Range, Costner took on the role of John James in 2009's The New Daughter, a supernatural horror piece that featured the directorial debut of Luis Verdejo. It was a marked departure for the star at the time, as he had rarely played around in the genre. His only other appearance in a horror flick up to that point came by way of the mid-80s slasher Shadows Run Black, which was distributed by famed low-budget studio Troma Entertainment. Also starring Ivana Bacuro, Pan's Labyrinth, Samantha Mathis, American Psycho, and Noah Taylor, Game of Thrones, The New Daughter was based on the short story of the same name by Irish author John Connolly. With a script penned by John Travis, the film featured a familiar premise to horror fans. A novelist and his two children encounter a malevolent presence when they move to a house in the country adjacent to a burial mound. It doesn't sound like anything special, right? Well, it wasn't, especially in a year that saw the release of such films as Friday the 13th, Jennifer's Body, House of the Devil, Drag Me to Hell, and remakes of The Last House on the Left and My Bloody Valentine. Perhaps if The New Daughter had an interesting hook rather than a tired cliché at its core, it would have stood a chance, but by the time it was released in December, horror fans had very little interest in seeing Costner try his hand at the genre. The New Daughter failed in every measurable way, earning just 24% from fans on Rotten Tomatoes thanks to many calling The New Daughter a waste of time. Critics were equally unkind to the film. Brad Miska from Bloody Disgusting called it barely engaging, tough to watch at times, and straight-up boring, while critic Pete Hammond was another who disliked Costner's effort, and even went so far as to suggest how the movie might have done better if they had dropped the New Daughter title, took Costner's mug off the one sheet, and just called it The Mound. They actually might have had a modest hit. Sadly, The New Daughter was far from being even a remotely modest attraction. With a reported budget of around $15 million, the film didn't even gross $1 million during its limited theatrical run at the tail end of the decade, and went straight to DVD and Blu-ray the following March. Unfortunately, not even sales and rentals could help the movie recoup its losses, making it a certified dud in every measurable way. Now, after more than 15 years, Costner is set to try his hand again at horror in the new film he's co-writing, Headhunters. Described as a surf horror thriller, history might repeat itself, as like The New Daughter, the project is being helmed by another first-time feature director, Stephen Halloran, who is also collaborating with Costner on the script. Set to be released in 2026, the film stars Costner as a washed-up American expat living in Bali and leading a group of surfers to an uncharted island that turns out to be inhabited by an ancient tribe of headhunters. As we await more news on Costner's latest, including additional casting announcements and a firm release date, you can check out his rare appearance in a horror film if you dare, as The New Daughter is now streaming for free on Tubi.